Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Canna Business Services show. Today, I want to talk to you about our tips for launching a cannabis business. And we have 10 really solid tips for you. We've tried to boil it down to the 10 most important tips that we have for you if you are looking to own a cannabis business. We have been in the industry for quite some time. I started this business after I left a law firm that I was working for as a civil litigator. I was an attorney in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania when medical cannabis was starting there. And it was a great law firm. I was getting great experience as an attorney. I really enjoyed the people I worked with. I loved the people I worked with. I loved the clients that we had. Medical cannabis was just starting in Pennsylvania. And so I got to really understand what cannabis was all about from an industry perspective, from a legal perspective, from a regulatory perspective, and of course, through meeting clients from a business ownership perspective. So it was really helpful for me. And at that point in time, it was around 2015, 2016 was around the time when it was starting there. And I helped build the cannabis division. I was assigned to help really bolster the firm's practice there. And the firm was one of the first, especially on the East Coast, Midwest, to do that. And it was really exciting. It was a great environment to be in. And the clients that we had, particularly in the cannabis space, were really competitive achievers in the space. So it was an awesome experience. I left the firm because I wanted to start my own practice, but not a law practice. I wanted to start a consultancy. What I saw at the time was a lot of consultants in the cannabis space who really didn't know what they were doing. They had no business, in my opinion, taking money from clients and advising them because they really had no understanding of how regulations impacted businesses. And that is one of the first things you have to really get a grasp on if you want to participate in the cannabis industry as a business owner. Now, thankfully, I was able to see it from both perspectives, as an attorney and through the eyes of a consultant, because we were working with consultants as the attorneys on the projects, on the cannabis projects, working alongside consultants on the projects and the clients. And I just saw a need for consultants in the cannabis industry that were just doing better work. I had attended a few medical cannabis conferences and saw a lot of the speakers give really bad advice. It may have been advice that worked in one state, but certainly didn't work in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania's medical cannabis program. And the advice they were giving people, as I was watching people take notes, was so wrong. It was going to destroy their chances of getting a license and getting open from the outset. And that to me was one of those areas where I saw that I could maybe be of value for people and starting a business that provided really good advisement, and without being an attorney on the project, but being more of a strategic consultant with a regulatory background. So I have since trained my staff to approach these projects from a regulatory background, which gives us an advantage over other consultancies for our clients. We have that regulatory understanding, the legal understanding, and the strategy that comes along with a consultancy. And to me, it has been the best of both worlds for our clients, and it has allowed them to have an advantage in this space. We have worked all over the world, and we have been in pretty much every regulated state in the United States. So medical adult use meaning recreational, 21 and older. So I have been really blessed to spend now approaching 10 years in the cannabis space, actually. And that is pretty unbelievable. That just hit me that I'm almost a decade in, and it has been like dog years. So I feel like I've been in the space for 70 years with the pace that it moves, balancing and understanding federal prohibition and state legalization and the conflicts that occur because of it, and the position that consumers are placed in, employees are placed in, and then how to navigate all of this as a business owner. So I hope that these 10 steps will help you if you are looking to launch your own cannabis business. So first and foremost, I think one of the most important things, and the first way that we guide our clients as they're starting a business, and it's the thing that I advise all of our clients to do when they're starting with us if they haven't done it already, and that is do an appropriate amount of research and understand industry demand. So what do I mean by that? I mean that if you are just bulldozing into a project in the cannabis space, but it's already been open for a while, the market has already been open, and you have no idea what you're getting into, it may not be the best use of your time, your effort, your energy, your money, your investment, as opposed to maybe starting in a state that is just opening. Depending on your approach, research will help you identify, I think, what the approach should be. So we get a lot of people who call us and say, I want to start a cannabis business. And that's amazing. I love when people call us with that, because that to me is, I remember that feeling of wanting to be in the cannabis space, just kind of diving headfirst into it, really having no idea where I was going to go with my business, outside of wanting to help people in this area that I felt like there was a need. And since to have expanded our practice to really get businesses built for exit. Cannabis businesses are usually starting because they just want to be in the industry and they haven't really identified what their exit plan is. But that's a step closer to number 10. So we'll talk more about that. But either way, the phone calls that we get, what I've seen a lot is that people don't know exactly what they want. So a great first step would be to just research the industry a little bit, get to know it, get an understanding of, from the top level, what it means federally to participate in this market, what it means on the state that you're interested in, on the state level. What does it mean locally? You may have a state that has legal cannabis industry. You're obviously going to conflict with federal law right now because it is a Schedule I drug, still listed that way. That's a topic for another day. But then you may live in an area that really opposes cannabis. So where does this direct your course? So I think appropriate industry research, and then of course understanding the market demand. You may want to be in the cannabis industry, but there's a lot of different ways you can play in this game. You can be a plant touching, what we call plant touching entity, which is a dispensary or retail facility, cultivate the plant, produce or manufacture the product, extract cannabis and produce products that way. Maybe you want to be a delivery service, a wholesaler. There's so many different ways you can be a plant touching business, or kind of that tier 1 business, an actual cannabis operating entity. There's also ancillary businesses like my consultancy, Cannabis Services. We're considered a tier 2 business, meaning we deal directly with plant touching entities, but we are not actually selling a cannabis product. We're selling services that support the cannabis businesses, right? We help companies in the cannabis space get licensed, get operational, get their doors open, scale their business, become massively competitive, and then ultimately sell their business if that's what they're looking to do. So, or expand their footprint. So, if you understand demand, you understand the industry you're playing in, and then you start to identify what types of licenses you would want to pursue and what the costs are that come with it. A lot of people will call us and say they want to be vertically integrated, meaning they want a cultivation, a manufacturing, and a retail facility or a dispensary, depending on the market and the names that the state gives it. Well, that can cost a lot of money. So it might be a good approach. And one thing we do is when we do some strategic advisement, it's kind of our phase 1 services where we just provide advisement and we guide the client into a very pointed and direct approach to what they really want out of this industry. Because someone may start with us and say, I want to be vertically integrated and I want to be in every state possible. And that might be a great goal. And that is something we can help you get to. But we need to understand where you're at now, what position you're in, what your funding looks like, what your team looks like, what strategies have you employed thus far, and how can we get you towards that outcome. And we have the conversation after we've identified where you're at now and what the trajectory looks like. Is the initial goal the right one still? Or do we need to pivot that goal a little bit and still get you ultimately what you were after, but you may have misidentified at first? So that's step 1, research the industry, research demand, absolutely. I think a good next step, and it's kind of, again, part of our phase 1 services as we give strategic advisement, we help research and identify locations you may want to be in or what type of business entity you want to start, whether it's CBD or it's like the THC type side of things. It's kind of the general label that states give different things. A good next step is writing a business plan and identifying how you can attract the right people to your team. Some people start with just the idea, but they're not well funded and they need capital to start. So, and again, this goes back to step one. When we identify and we do research with our clients, you can better understand how much money you need to get started. Can you self-fund this? Do you need investors? Well, step two, create that plan, that business plan that identifies what you need, where it's going, and then what the benefit is for the investors. My husband and I, we work with businesses all the time. We've invested in projects, and the first questions we ask is, and this is what investors ask all the time. So where is that investor's money going exactly? And I cannot tell you how many times I have seen business opportunities fall apart. I have been approached by business owners who want me to invest, or my husband and I to invest, and we look at this business plan and we see very quickly that they either have no idea what they want, they haven't actually done any research of the market, so they don't know the risks, they haven't properly identified where money's going, or we see where the money is actually going and we see that it's maybe just going to give them a salary and it's actually not going to help fund the business or do anything that would actually launch the business forward. So a savvy investor, the right investors that I believe would be good for a project are the ones who know how to interpret and understand a business plan. So do it right, invest the time into it, invest the money into it if you need to outsource and get that prepared. I will say a lot of consulting companies offer to prepare business plans and they're not good. They are template models. Sometimes they are far too wordy. We've seen people put them into ChatGPT, come to us and say, hey, can you make sure this is a good business plan? And we look at it and ChatGPT basically wrote the same thing kind of 5 times in 5 different ways, and it actually adds no value to an investor or potential investor. Your business plan doesn't have to be 80 pages. We've seen them massive. We've seen them way too short, way too long. There's a perfect approach there. And it all kind of depends on what you need, how many pages you need, and how much content you need to get the point across that this is a business worth investing in. You've got a clear plan on where you're going, and you have a way for that investor to potentially see their money back. I'm not a financial advisor, but it's something we see time and time again. There's no clear answers for potential investors. And unless they're family and friends who are just rooting for you and putting up some high risk capital, you really won't get far if you don't have a solid business plan that attracts the right people. Number 3, I think is an important one for us, and that is secure your licensing and your legal structure. That again goes into our phase 1. Our phase 1 support includes getting you licensed, and that can look very different for different people. If you're applying in a place like Kentucky, that was what's called a lottery. So it's a lower cost entry fee, for lack of better words, to get into and participate in the licensing model for the state. But it's high risk. You're going literally into a lottery that is held by the state's lottery, and they are pulling winners out of that lottery pool just like you would the Powerball. So that is usually lower cost to get in because the application there's lower barriers to entry, or you get into a state that is really challenging to get through, can cost a lot of money. So that will look different depending on what type of business you're getting into. If you're operating a CBD company that is in outside of New Jersey, great example might be New York. If you're operating a CBD company in New York, you may not have the licensing policies in place like for a THC cannabis company that has to go through the regulated model, get third-party tested, things like that. But there are new laws and bills passing every week. So you have to be really, again, going back to step 1, you have to be have really in-depth research prepared so that you get through step 2, which is your business plan. Step 3, your licensing and legal aspect. Because if you try to start a CBD company in New Jersey, you would see a bill that was recently passed that is trying to put all of this under the regulated THC market. So you may not be able to sell a CBD product in a gas station in the same way that you would in Pennsylvania. So be very, very careful and very diligent in how you're pursuing this process and get an understanding of what that licensing looks like. We do this advisement all the time. Part of the process of licensing is also all of the background paperwork. Who is on your team? What disclosures do you need? Is it the right team member? Can they be disclosed? Will it disqualify your application? What type of entity structure should you submit under? I see a lot of things on social media these days where people list out their top 5 things to start a business and they say, get an LLC. Well, first of all, I think that overlaps right into legal advisement. That is treacherous waters. And so it always makes me nervous when I see people recommending LLCs right off the bat without any question. And what people don't realize is that you don't file for an LLC necessarily. You file for an entity. And then you can select what type of entity you want. LLC, and is that LLC filed as an S Corp or a C Corp? Are you doing a sole prop? Are you doing a corporation? Are you doing a nonprofit? So there's different entity structures. So be wary when you see things online where people just jump through in a 30-second TikTok video and says, file your LLC. Just slow down, be careful. LLC might be the right approach, but if you stop too short and you don't file as an S Corp, that might be a bad thing because you're on a limited amount of time to do that. So we always recommend working with an attorney, working with an accountant, working with a consulting firm that's full service, that understands the entire roadmap that you're going to be on. A good consultant like Cannabis Business Services, we help our clients identify where you need to pull that attorney in, where you don't need an attorney, where you need an accountant to oversee this aspect, where you don't. All of these things, where you shouldn't be using a consulting firm, where you should be using an attorney. What pieces do you play, and how you navigate the game board of owning a business and starting a business in the cannabis space. So do your due diligence there for sure. And the other aspect is if you are late in the game, so to speak, in a state and they've already had their licensing round and that licensing window, the application window is closed, there may be ways to partner with existing businesses. So the door is not shut when a licensing round ends. It just might mean you have to adjust your roadmap a little bit to get to the end goal that you have. And then, of course, once you're open, then you have once you're licensed, you have to get open. But our step number 4 in building that cannabis business and getting open as a cannabis business is launching your brand, differentiating your business. So identify the ideal customer that you have. And this is all things that we, actually my mug says built to exit. We build all of our businesses to exit. So when we work with a client, what might be the ultimate focus for a client is, how do I just get my license? For us, we're not only helping you get your license, we're actually pre-identifying all the steps you need to get open. Cannabis businesses are so sloppy. They do not do this. They find themselves a year into a business, 2-3 years in, and they are scrambling just to stay above water. And what we have done with our clients is we have set them up for success well before they're licensed. So by the time you're at step 4, if you've done all of the first steps correctly, but you've already kind of built your business for exit and kept that in mind as you did your research, as you built your business plan, as you acquired your license, you building your brand and differentiating yourself in the market will actually be a lot easier than someone who is just figuring out how to differentiate themselves in step 4. Does that make sense? So step 4, take this list of 10, save this podcast episode, save this video, and really understand that you need to understand and have the layout of all 10 steps, but be thinking about all 10 steps as you're identifying and doing your research in step 1, because that research will inform how you will approach step 4, differentiating yourself and launching your brand. Building that brand, creating raving fan customers. That is absolutely step 4. They say branding is king. Branding is more in this sense than just a logo. It is how you interact with your customers, how you interact with your employees. Are your employees happy to work with you? Do you have a great company culture? All of this plays into creating a brand that stands out from your competitors. And in the cannabis industry, standing out from your competitors is so important, but it's more than just a fancy sign and a pretty logo. It is embedded in the culture that you have created since step 1. So step number 5 in building a cannabis business for success and getting launched, Lock down your suppliers and build those relationships. And I will tell you now that you should not be locking in with every partner that is out there. As a retailer, by example, if you've got a bunch of cultivators and manufacturers that are available to serve you and to build your inventory in your retail facility, you have to make sure you're not locked into some sort of relationship that you can't get out of. I've seen agreements with suppliers that basically lock the retailer into some good product, and you're also locked into the bottom of the barrel product that the supplier is just trying to get rid of. So you have to be able to navigate those relationships, vet the suppliers before you sign on, because remember, you don't want to be known as the retailer that sells bad product, even though you're selling someone else's product in your store. It might be the cultivator's fault that the product is bad, or the manufacturer's fault. But if you're the one selling it, you're the one that's front facing to the customer. You have to take that feedback in and adjust the relationships you have. That is key and kind of intertwined with step 4 in building a great brand and scaling your business. So that is absolutely a major step in getting a great cannabis business launched. So number 6, this is a tough one for people. Find and secure good banking. Banking can be hard to come by in the cannabis space. We advise our clients in this way all the time, but you have to have a cannabis-friendly bank to set up. It's often overlooked. It doesn't seem like a foundational point, but it is an important point and an important step to take as you're launching a cannabis business. So identify the banks that are friendly. Some of them will charge a lot more than regular traditional banking, so be careful there. Navigate that. And then you can also understand how much funding you need to fill into that bank account. So when you've built your business plan, you should be able to then, once you get those investors, fund that bank account. And I think investors need to be made aware of the banking challenges. And if they're a good match for you, they'll be able to navigate that with you. Step number 7, of course, this is one that I think is huge. And this is kind of part and parcel to building that business plan and doing your research. Choose the right location. If you don't have the right location, you might have the best operations possible. But if you're in a bad location, and say you've identified a brand that you love and you fell in love with, but your location is a whole different customer segment, you may never pair up with your customers the way you thought. I've seen this a lot. People will create a brand that they've fallen in love with and never really take the time to consider if that fits in the location that they're in. So just consider all of that. Certainly understand local ordinances, zoning laws. There's green zones. There's variances you may need to apply for, conditional use approvals, all kinds of things. You may have a really clear ordinance roadmap, but your city council might hate cannabis. And so you may be stuck in that process for quite a long time. We navigate the local rules constantly with clients, and it is one of the biggest tripping points for clients we have seen, hands down. So definitely be careful there. So wrapping up here, we're on the last few steps that we believe are very important in launching a good and successful cannabis business. Number 8, build a rock star team. And like I said before, part of your brand is not only customer facing, it is employee facing. My husband and I talk about this a lot. Fire fast, hire slow. I will say that again. Hire slow, fire fast. And that is so critical to launching and keeping a good brand. That your customers can tell immediately if you do not have a good team and if you have not trained your team well. You might have a beautiful team that has a great attitude, great company culture, but no training in place, which destroys your culture because you've got now frustrated employees who want to do a good job but have no training to support that. It is your job as a business owner to create that environment, to follow through on your promises, and to take the vision and the dreams and the goals you have in your brain and get them out into SOPs and train your staff. But you also have to hire the right people. And so my husband and I, we have a course called the Built to Exit System. It's a masterful course that has helped hundreds of businesses grow their businesses, scale, and properly build a team. Not only the process of hiring slow and what you have to do to get there and the organizational structures you have to consider, but also how to get rid of the wrong team members who will destroy your culture. And then, of course, building the right SOPs, to put that in place, to train them properly, and to keep a good team in place. That is part of your brand. So you cannot skip this step. It is critical. All right, so step 9, market smart without breaking the law. So this is an important one, especially in the cannabis space, because there are so many restrictions around advertising. There are rules around whether something looks like a cartoon or not, and that could be the shape of the letters you use in a label, the warnings labels you use on a package. Is a package child resistant, child proof? What are your laws around that? What kind of cannabis symbols or TH symbols are required on a package? What do your local ordinances provide along with your state regulations? What kind of signage can you have outside? Cannabis businesses are held under stricter rules than regular businesses. A sign on the outside of a facility may work for CVS, but may not work for a dispensary. So be very careful around not only how you're marketing yourself on the exterior, but how you're being a good neighbor. Are you complying with local ordinances when you do it? And are you complying with state law? And there are, again, federal restrictions that also prohibit advertising in certain spaces. So be very, very careful here and understand the rules around paid advertising on social media and all of those things. It can be a tricky spot. We advise this area with our clients all the time. It's just something you just navigate thoughtfully. You have to do it smart. You have to market. You have to advertise, but you can't get yourself in trouble or you can't risk losing your license. So be very, very careful there. So step number 10, this is my favorite step because it invades all other steps. Build for exit. Like I said, my husband and I live by this phrase because every business is building for exit. You may not know it. You may think you're just starting your business, but you will exit one day. Like my husband says, you may exit involuntarily, meaning you go bankrupt or you die at your desk, or you have a dictated exit where you could sell, but it's not going to be for as much as you want. We have people come to us and say, hey, I want to sell my business for $10 million. The first 5 seconds of reading their financials, we know they are not worth even $500,000. And so all of that time and money that you've put into your business, you think you're going to get this much out of it, and you're only going to get pennies on the dollar. So be very, very careful there. The ideal exit is the exit that you control, the defined exit that you have identified for yourself, and you built your business and the foundation of your business to get you there. And it can be done. We've done it. We've seen it. It can happen. We've worked with our clients to it. We've done it with our own businesses. Build your business for exit. You will be successful. It is hard work. You need all 10 steps here. And there's more steps, like I said, and just keep watching our videos. You'll learn a lot more. This is kind of a very high level view of our 10 steps here. But if you don't build for exit, build your operations for exit, your marketing and sales strategy, your culture, your training, your SOPs, your compliance, internal audits, your financials, all of these are critical steps to master. And then you will build your business to be the type that another buyer may come in and say, yeah, I want to buy this and I'll give you whatever you want for it. Or you say, hey, I'm never going to sell. I'm going to pass this baby on to my kids one day, and they're never going to have to pick up a failing business. They're going to be able to continue to keep this business thriving. So I hope this helps. These are our top tips for starting and launching a cannabis business, and we are so excited for you on your journey. We hope these steps help. Please subscribe if you are interested. This is just something that really we have a heart for sharing with business owners, that we want to help them not only survive, but thrive. We've seen pretty much everything there is to see in this space. We know just about every curveball that can occur. We can anticipate a lot for our clients. So we built this list based on those insights and that experience. So we hope it helps you, and we hope that you build your cannabis business for exit.